So ches, I'm a base, and someone who buys a field in Syria is like they buy it in the outskirts of Jerusalem. And the Gemara asks, "Lamai hilkasa?" What's the halacha? And Rav Sheshes Leimer that you write it the star even on Shabbos. So you're going to write the star on Shabbos. That's an Isser Malacha. So you can tell a goy to do it. So we're touching here on Amir La'akum. Hachanami Omer Lavoid. So also too, just like in Eretz Israel, you can ask a goy to write the contract. So to here, for Syria, when you're buying land in Syria, you can ask a goy to write the contract. So asking a goy is an Isidor Rabbanan. So you either have that it's a there's two Issers. One is the Isser of Dover, that your speech has to be like not the speech of the weekday. And the second Isser is that he's Nira Shaliach, that the goy looks like the Shaliach of a Jew, and you can't, obviously he's not a Shaliach because you can't make a goy a Shaliach to something. But when a goy does, when you do a miras la'akum, it looks like the goy is your shliach. There's two reasons why it's aser. So therefore, I would say that you can't ask a goy to do it. Mishum Yishuv Eretz Yisrael lo gozer rabbanon. So for Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, the rabbanon were not gozer. Now a simple way to understand this. Now the l'chayra, we're talking about writing a star here. Rashi says star mechira. So you ask a goy to do an Isser D'Oraisa. Right, so a miras la'akum for an Isser D'Oraisa. L'chayr is the pashtus, right? That there was no geyser d'Rabbanan for Yishuv Eretz. So there's a special mitzvah here. So it's not just any mitzvah, or it's a special mitzvah that a miras la'akum is doicha as doicha a malachat D'Oraisa. Amir Lakim for Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. So Tosfos here, Afokav Damir Lavachav Mishavos Misham Yishuv Yisrael Kozru Aval Misham Mitzvah Acheres Lo. So now we get into like what exactly is this Gemara being mashma? When can I tell a goy to do a malacha? And again, malacha d'oraisa, which is kasiva. I can tell him to do. So Tosfos says no other mitzvah is included. Hayinu matirim amir la'avachachavim b'malacha d'oraisa. So there's no other mitzvah that we are matir and malacha d'oraisa for. So there's no other mitzvah. Mishum mitzvah acheres, we don't matir amir la'akum b'malacha d'oraisa. Right, so kedemuchach b'perach hadar. So therefore Tosfos is saying that you can have an miras la'akum for a Isser D'Rabbanan, but you can't have a miras la'akum for an Isser D'Oraisa. So Tosfos is holding with a shita of a shavus to shavus. That a shavus is, and it's not an Isser D'Oraisa to tell a goy to do something for you. And then Tosfos says that you can only tell him to do a malacha d'Rabbanan. That's also a shavus. So a shavus of a shavus. Tosfos is saying is mutter. So where do we see this? We see this in Eruvin. Now, in Eruvin, there's two stories of a Yanuka. One story of a Yanuka is where you need to bring the water through from someone's house. In the second case of the Yanuka is where Hahu Yanuka de'ishbach chamima, where you spill the water. Now, it doesn't say what the water's for. What's the water for? You just spill the water. Atu lekamei de Rava. Rava says, Amar lahu, ask the mother if she needs water. If she does, then you can warm it up for the mother. So here, the baby needs to need water for some reason, and we're saying, so Rava says the only heter we have is ask the mother to do it. If the mother needs the water, then you can heat up the water for the baby agavemef, as well as the mother. So you can't directly heat up the water for the baby, you need to do it agav the mother. There's really no details here in this Gemara. Water, we don't know what it's for, it got spilt. Rava says, ask the mother, and if she needs it, then you can cook it for the mother. the baby needs hot water, we can only heat it up for the baby, but we don't know why. If the mother needs it, we don't know why the baby needs the hot water. So Tosfos straight off the bat here says v'lachayra mashma to be yom mila haya. So it doesn't say mila anywhere in the Gemara, but Tosfos is saying that what do you need? Obviously, this water is for not an innocuous purpose, but for specifically a real purpose. Therefore, it has to be the mila which you need it for. So that they need to heat up the water to do the mila. And before the mila, it was, i.e., that it got spilt before the mila. Because if it was after the mila, the baby would be mesuchan. And therefore, that you would able to heat up the water directly for the baby. You wouldn't need this whole business to see if the mother needs, so then we can heat it up for the baby. And if the mother doesn't need, we can't heat it up for the baby. And that's the first point of Tosfos. Tosfos' second point then says, now here, again, the Gemara doesn't say. So ask the mother if she needs it, and then we can heat up the water for the with this. So this really, that we're heating up for the baby because the mother needs it is Ribui Shiurim. And here we're doing it through the Oivek Kachavim, that the goy is heating up the water. Now, is it possible that a Jew is heating up the water? Obviously, heating up the water is an Isser Deraisa, is an Isser Deraisa of Bishul. Could it be that the Jew is heating it up? If the mother Taka needs it for a B'chuak Nefesh purpose, so then a Jew should be able to do it. Now, the problem with that is that Jew who's cooking for the mother allowed to be marbe shiur for the baby? So over there, so how does Tosfos know that a goy is doing it? Because sham b'kuntrus, because Rashi said so. So it's not really bringing it as a raya. And again, obviously the Gemara, once Rashi says it and the Gemara doesn't say it, Rashi has to say it to be lafuke, the other people who are saying otherwise. So obviously you can fit a shita in there of that a Jew is taka doing it. So now according to Tosfos, so it's on the day of the Mila, and the water got spilt, and they came to Rava and they said, can we heat up the water for the Mila? So Rav is saying you can't do it directly. Now it's through a goy. It's alidei oiv chachavim. It's through a goy. So let's just ask the goy to cook the water. He says no. We only need it. We can only allow the goy for marbe shiurim. So therefore, you see, Tosfos is saying that the goy can't be asked to do a malacha deraisa, because if he gets asked to do a malacha deraisa, so just have him cook it without the mother. What do we need this whole thing there? Well, if the mother needs, just cook the water for the baby for the mila, and ask a goy to do a malacha deraisa. So we see from Tosfos that you can't ask a goy to do a malacha deraisa, and also pashtus that Tosfos is holding that Ribui Shiurim is deraisa or derabanan here. If marbe shiurim is deraisa, so then how can you ask a goy to be marbe shiur? But all these shitas and Tosfos are all through a diuk. They're all through much more to Tosfos. Tosfos says, beferish, obviously, that the goy can't be asked to do a malacha deraisa. But what does he hold by marbe shiurim? Of course, so far I have to say he holds that it's a deraisa. The Ribui Shiurim has to be derabanan because you're asking the goy to do it. And if he held that the Ribui Shiurim was deraisa, then you can't ask the goy to do it anyway. But I'm sure we'll flip again later on. V'chein perish rach. So rach, just like Rashi, rach says as well, kadamrim mafinim. Now, here it goes into a idea here as to what's b'chuak nefesh for the mother. Techaya misheva ad shleishim efilo amra tzricha ani ein mechalan leia es Shabbos. Now, we are on day 8, according to Tosfos. And again, Tosfos is putting that into the Gemara, that it's the Mila. It doesn't say anywhere Mila, it says the baby in hot water. So Tosfos said it's the Mila. Mila is day 8. So a Chaya is someone who just gave birth from the 7th day until the 30th day. That's where we're in. Even if she says, I need water, we don't Machal Shabbos for her. So therefore, Tosfos is saying now it's day 8. We don't Machal Shabbos for her, therefore a Jew can't do the cooking. And therefore, it's only you have to ask a goy to do it. And then a bit of a tangent. When is the womb open? Abaye says until 3. Rava says 7, and Rav Yehuda says 7. Sorry, Rava says in the name of Rav 7, and some say 30. Now, lo lachalei Shabbos kamri. We're not having a maklokas as to how long can you be mechal Shabbos for her, and they're arguing. Are there everyone? Each one says their own halacha. Amar chad, amar chad, v'lo pligi, and everyone holds like Naradoi that says that chaya is 3 days. So that Nardi says chaya, she's got 3 things: Gimel, Sheva, and Shloshim. So therefore, Amar Abaye Shalosha. Shalosha is that you machal Shabbos even if she says I don't need. 7 is that if she says I need, you machal Shabbos. And then more than 7 up to 30, we don't machal Shabbos even if she says I need, we don't machal for her. So that's the din of 3, a din of 7, and a din of 30, and therefore on day 8 we only machal for her. So we don't machal for her even if she says tzaricha ani. And it's doichek loimer, so Tosfos has a potential teretz to me'et la'et be'inin. So therefore, no, even after 7, we still have another 24 hours. The ha'uvta, i.e. the bris, was on the 7 of 24 hours. So 7 days plus 24 hours could be the bris, and therefore we're mechal Shabbos deraisa for her. That's doichek to say that. Just basically saying that we're on day 8, and therefore we're not mechal Shabbos for her, even if she says I need. Now Tosfos brings the second case in Eruvin. V'had amar hasam la'ayel. So we have another case above, Be'idach Yunoka, different Yunoka, the Ishbech Chamima, so that the water was poured out. And they said, Rava, bring the hot water from my house. So I had water in my house. So they do it, so they said it had to be done by a goy. Fatai Isur Rabbanan Shari B'chatzer, Shalo Ivru. So for sure it's a Rabbanan Isser, because they told the goy, they can't, again, according to Tosfos, they can't tell a goy to start doing malachat deraises. So therefore they were doing it through a not through a Rishus Harabim. So therefore it was an Isser Derabim. If it's a Rishus Harabim, so therefore then they can't you can't ask a goy to do it. But here, asking the goy to bring the hot water, it's just through a chotzer that didn't have an erev. So therefore, the rice it's mutter, but the rabbanon it's also you have to put an erev in. So it's not a real. So then, why would they allow to do it? It's a rabbanon. Mishom mitzvah mila. So therefore, now Tosfos kind of introduces the idea. This is the ikar halacha. The ikar halacha is a shavus of a shavus l'tzorach mitzvah. That's the ikar halacha. And this is Tosfos kind of introducing it here that we have a shavus is a miras la'akum for a shavus, which is in a isur rabbanan, but makom mitzvah. So therefore, the goy, you can't ask a goy to bring something through a chatzor that was not an erev, but for a mitzvah you're allowed to. Aval isur deraisa, for sure you can't ask him to do. Come on, chamem lo chamem, for him to heat up the water for the mila asur. So you can't ask him to do. It's only shavus of shus of makom, not a shavus of a isur deraisa. The ein lomod mikan heter loimer lo'avil chachavim lahavi sefer b'Shabbos derech karmelis. And here Tosfos is saying that you can't learn that in general that a shavus of a shavus b'makom mitzvah is mutter. The lo dami davka the lo dami the davka mishum mila he the davka mishum mila. So here he brings an idea. So tell a goy to bring a sefer on Shabbos derech karmelis, which is an isur rabbanan. That's a shavus of a shavus. And the makom mitzvah, you're going to read it. You're going to read the sefer Torah in shul. You can't learn from here because it's not similar. Because only mila is the mitzvah that you're allowed to be teicha, because he gufa teicha Shabbos. That the mila itself. Mila is asur on Shabbos and Mila is Teicha Shabbos. You can't cut. It's taking the nefesh. It's a chabura. You're making a chabura. You're not allowed to do that. And it's yet it's mutter on Shabbos, and therefore it's davka by Mila. It's mutter. Now the Poiskin, the Torah brings this. He brings two opinions that any mitzvah you're allowed to be Teicha. And he brings the idea that only Mila you're allowed to be Doicha, and we posken that any mitzvah you're allowed to be Doicha. That's so therefore Shavuos b'malkim mitzvah, as opposed to here what Tosfos is saying, Shavuos b'malkim mila. Now we bring something completely different. Umihu behilchos ketolis. This is the Bahag. Mashma de afilu iser deraisa shari. Now the Bahag here Tosfos brings and says that the Bahag holds that you can tell a goy to do a iser deraisa. So therefore a Shavuos, just a Shavuos, or Shavuos b'malkim mitzvah. So far, if this is mila, just Shavuos, just tell a goy to do an iser deraisa. That's the shittas of the Bahag. Brought down here in the Tosfos, you can tell a goy to do an iser deraisa. So then iser deraisa alidei goy letzorach mila. So there you have that amira la'akum letzorach mitzvah iser deraisa is mutter according to the Bahag. Shapirish the leisu mitoch beisa. So now he's going to explain the previous case of carrying to bring it from my house, derech Reshus Harabim. So he told the goy to bring the hot water through the Reshus Harabim, which is the deraisa. That's how the Bahag explains it over there. The Fizeh had to come nachem le'yagavima. So now, what's going on with the previous case? Why do we need to do it? Why did we, if we can ask a goy to do an iser deraisa for the mila, so therefore just tell the goy to heat up. I don't need it for the mother. So nukma toch sheva. So say that it's within the first 7 days and the mother needs it. Va'amra shricha ani shemachalon neleya Shabbos. So therefore we have to say that we're changing basically this whole case up here of hahu yenuka, that the water was spilled. Tosfos says it was on the mila, and he's saying according to the Bahag it was not the mila. It was not the mila b'chlal. It was took 7 days. Since it was took 7 days, the baby basically doesn't need the water at all. Since the baby doesn't need the water, there's no mitzvah for the baby, and therefore you can't be mechalel in the Shabbos even by a Jew for the mother. And then either we do the goy is doing the cooking, and therefore I can be marbeh for the baby, or the marbeh shiurim is the rabbanon, and therefore, well, the Jew still can't be. So Jew still can't be marbeh. There has to be some type of weiter heter for the Jew to do it. But you have the Jew could even be cooking it. Now Tosfos argues So Tosfos argues here on the Bahag and say no, it's not a good shita to nachem la'alidei Yisrael. You can't say that the Jews doing it. Alidei Yisrael haya asher laharbos v'shul katan. So we have to answer that up for the Bahag. How can the Jew be marbeh shul katan? As we say in Perek comment to Chulin, hamavashul l'choyle b'Shabbos asher lebari. So that if you're cooking, if you have a heter to cook for a sick person, whatever he cooks, a healthy person can't eat that. Why not? Maybe he will be marbeh in the cooking for the healthy person. And aval alidei goy is nicha deshari laharbos, but through a goy, it's good that he can, because that's only nisad rabbanon. V'shema davka l'tzorach milahu deshari. Here it goes that maybe it's only for the mila that it's mutter. Aval l'tzorach davar acher afilu alidei goy is aser the harbos. So we're talking about Ribui Shiurim. Maybe only mila is Ribui Shiurim. Tosfos is ending off with here. The had titanam beperek base the Bitzah. Lo yechem adam chamim leraglov ela im kein roy lishtia, that you can't heat up water for your feet unless you're able to drink it, unless it's fitting to shtia, because you have a heter to cook for oichel nefesh, and therefore for the oichel nefesh you are able to be heating up for your legs as long as you are shtia, and cook and washing your legs is not a mitzvah. So we see here from Bitzah that you can be marbeh shir shelo b'malkim mitzvah. We also say in Bitzah Yud Zayin that you fill up, a woman can fill up her pot with meat, even though that she doesn't need only one piece. So the rest of the bosser, so she's going to eat one piece of meat for Chag, and then she can fill her whole pot up for it. So there she's marbeh shiurim shelo b'malkim mitzvah. Became a malanachtum that the baker can fill up some water, even though he only needs a small amount. He can fill up the entire barrels worth. Echad mishum simcha yom tov hatiru chachamim leharbos. Because so basically he's bringing these cases that's saying that it is mar b'shiurim only mutter b'mokim mitzvah. Look at all these cases where you can do be mar b'shir shelo b'mokim mitzvah, and he says no, this is also b'mokim mitzvah because simchas yom tov is the mokim mitzvah. So the Rishash brings simchas yom tov heteru l'chayra bahad de memale isha ma simchas yom tov ika. Well, the woman is filling up her pot full of meat. She needs one piece of meat for chag. What's the simchas yom tov with this ribui? Kevin de ein tzarech hayom elach hatichas achat. She only needs one piece today for yom tov. So therefore, what's the ribui shiurim? That's a tzarech mitzvah. What's the simchas yom tov here? So I'd say yeah, it's just for ulai misham de simcha hi lehem hayom b'mash that she'll have tomorrow. She'll have prepared food. We should have in the end of Bitzah. That's shenoisim bo b'chol. See that they get hana b'chol, and therefore you can send them on yontiv. So that you have food on yontiv on chol. That's a simchas yontiv. It's a bit of a doichek. No, that your simchas yontiv is because I'm going to have food on chol. It's a bit of a doichek. It'd be easier just to say that you don't need a mitzvah. A couple of points on amiris la'akum. So the Ramah here, yesh oimrim demoter loimer le'ena Yehudi lehadlik lo ner. Right. So that's a shita to say that you can tell a goy to do a malacha deraisa l'sorach mitzvah. Right? L'suda Shabbos mishum desvara le de mutter amir le goy afila b'malacha gemura b'malka mitzvah. Right. So here now it's brought here b'shem ha-iter. The Gra says who is the iter? Kagirsis bahag. Baha Erevin, that's the that's the Erevin that Toisus brings. So the Bahag is the Shitas here that's brought down as the Itter. So it's brought down. This Bahag is arguing on Toisus, who says that a Miras le Goy letzarach the Raisa is Mutter. It's brought down here in the Ramah. Shalpizeh noch ragum lahakel, but proper suda ve'ein moicha biyadam yesh lachmer b'malkim she'ein tzarach godel. So roiv poiskim choilchin. So the Ramah brings it, but basically he says so people were doing it at that time, and other poiskim later poiskim say they were doing it at the time of the Ramah, but we don't do it anymore. But it's takashita that's brought down. Even the Mishnah Berurah. You come motor loimer to a goy to fix the eruv that was in skalkel b'Shabbos. That will be a boina, is it a rabban and ketei shelo yivu rabim lidei mechshol. So you have that the Mishnah Berurah is matir for a mechshol rabim that you can ask a goy to do a isur deraisa. Now there's an interesting case of where if a shvus de shavus b'malkim mitzvah is mutter, so if you have a deraisa, I should be able to ask a goy to do the deraisa. So then I have a shvus b'malkim mitzvah, and is that mutter? So it's brought. It is a shita. V'da demad dekaimal anir le goy shvus who afilu im amor le goy she'emir le goy. So the Mishnah Berurah is going against that idea. The goy acher lasotlo malacha b'Shabbos. Right, so Mishnah Berurah is saying that we don't hold by that. The Chavos Yair b'simin mitzaded lehakel b'zeh. So he's bringing down the Chavos Yair. So the Chavos Yair does have the shita. So Pashtus, it's not the halacha. I mean, you can't do it, but the Chavos Yair is out there. And let's mitzaded lehakel here means that's because someone's trying to prove it to be not true, and all he does is doicha the proofs. He doesn't really say that we can be makel. He just says there's no proof it's not true. But in Svara, I think it's a good Svara. But so going back to Ribui Shiurim, Tana Rabban, this is in Bitzah. Be'emes Omru, Mamale Isha Kol Kedera Boser, Afal Pisha Enetricha Elachaticha Acha. So Toisus brought this case. So therefore you have that Ribui Shiurim on Chag is mutter lechatchila. Now this is Gemara in Menachos, and Rava asks a question here. Boy, Rava, choyle, you have a sick person that is oimed, that he needs 2 gorgoros. So gorgoros are dried figs. It's a bit of an issue. What are dried figs doing on a tree? Why are dried figs going to save this guy's life? So another way to understand it is the shear of food that he needs a shear of that's on a tree that you need to do. Now there's 2 options here. There's 2 figs on 2 stalks, and 3 figs on 1 stalk. Hai menaihu manisim. Which one do we bring? So again, if you take the 2, you're cutting twice, and if you take the 3, you have Ribui Shiurim that you've cut off 3 figs. Shtayim masnis, we bring 2 to chazile because there's 2, or dima shalosh bring in to kama mema katsira. So if you bring the 3, then you're being memayit the katsira. If you bring 2, you're being the memayit the ribui of the figs. Now, what's mashma from this Gemara? It answers because it's going on a Mishnah, whatever Peshita that we bring 3, right? And that you be memayit the katsira. That's a teretz. But in the kasha, if you have 1 stalk with 3 on it, and 1 stalk with 2 on it, for sure you bring the 1 stalk with 2 on it. Therefore, this Gemara is saying that Ribui Shiurim is aser, even though we had on the previous Gemara that Ribui Shiurim is mutter. Now you'll have a simple chiluk to say that here we're dealing with Shabbos, and therefore Ribui Shiurim is aser on Shabbos. However, on Yom Tov, Ribui Shiurim is mutter. But if you want to make that chiluk, then you're going to need to explain what's the chiluk, what exactly is going on here. Why is Shabbos and Yom Tov a good reason to be mechalik? So at Tosis here, lo matzi lemishrate meha, we can't answer our question from Beitza mamali shekadera basar afopisha enatzricha ela hatichas achas mamala nachtam chav shamayim. This is the Gemara we say. So we should just say here that for sure that it is afopisha enatzarach ela gazacha to be Yom Tov the Kyle. So therefore over there is Yom Tov. So Tosis is saying that Yom Tov is mekel, and we're not choishish, and it's not like Shabbos. The lo nitan litchos. Shabbos is not matter litchos. But ha nami the sharin and gabi yunuka. We've heard this before. The ishboch chamima lechamem agav ima de erevin hayinu. So that's Ribui Shiurim. Alidei. That's through a goy. So here through a Jew. So therefore we can't learn from the Ribui Shiurim of erevin. Prepare shamba kunches. The ken perish rach. Right. That's the lashon we had in our toises. Afilu mayri alidei Yisrael nicha. The haka leka ele iser de rabbanon. So Tosis here is saying beferush that there's only an iser de rabbanon in the case of the Yanika. Upamokem mila the hikuf the chiyah Shabbos lo gozru. So here Tosis here is beferush saying that over there in the Yanika it's a iser de rabbanon that was being done. This is the Tosis here in Erevin Samaches. Itzircha, then we can heat it up through the mother. Parshuna beperakama de Gittin. I've explained this all in Parakama de Gittin. So here the ikar of this whole sugya in Erevin is over there in Gittin. That's how we're having all this Ribui Shiurim. So as we start off looking at this, we're getting the Ran on the Dafei Arif. This is in Beitza. And we had the idea in Beitza that Ribui Shiurim is mutter from the Gemara in Beitza. Now the Ran says Miha Mashmed the Ribui Shiurim beyond of mutter. Right, so this is what it looks like in the Gemara there. We said later on that you can't invite a goy on Yom Tov. Why? Maybe you will cook extra for him. That's only if you're going to cook him in a separate pot, because Ribui Shiurim is mutter on Yom Tov in the same pot. So that's called, we're going to see it's called Maisa Echad. Ribui Shiurim, but it has to be a Maisa Echad. If you do multiple Maisim, then it's not Ribui Shiurim, that's like Ribui Maisa. This is our case in Menachos. You have the Chayla, and we say, or Dilma Shalosh, which that's the Kasha. and we have the maskon of the Gemara there is that we do 3. The shalosh matninim shtaim lo matnis and mishum because you are miut betzira adav, right? But he explains that can lo ibayla, and the question there is only because keagam b'shtayim b'shnei yotzim ike riboy betzira. So there we only had 2, but if we had 2 versus 3, so one stalk has 2 and one stalk has 3. Aval mashma b'pshitalan d'shnayim b'oiketz echad. So you had one stalk that has 2 and shalosh b'oket acher. So one stalk has 3. That's pasha that you bring 2 and 3 you don't bring. Until Ribui Shiurim aser. So again, we explained this last time. This is speaking out in the Ran. That we have a Gemara in Bitzah saying Ribui Shiurim is mutter. So he calls it, he says it's mutter, and Ribui Shiurim in Menachos is osir. So Teretz Ri is Taisvus. The Hatam b'Shabbos Davka Ika Iser Skila. So there he's again. This is in the Taisvus in Menachos. So we'll see that we'll get more into depth here. But basically there is. Shabbos is skila, about motor to about yontiv to aser lav. It's only a lav, so hikilu. Right, so that in itself, it's just like, what are you talking about? We're just makel because it's a lav. A lav is aser. Skila is aser. I'm going to be makel here. We'll come up with other terutzim or perushim there, but just at the moment, like a lav is aser. Who cares? Under the rabbanon. Now so you have to say something along the lines of that. It's an Issur. We were asking in Tosfos. Does Tosfos hold that Ribui Shiurim is deraisa or derabbanan? And here you have to say something like this. So far in the Ran, that who's saying Shita. So the Tosfos will have to hold that it's a Issur derabbanan. Ribui Shiurim is derabbanan, and therefore whether rabbanan are geyser, they get to choose how they're geyser. They're making the whole Issur up in the first place, and therefore if they want to have an Issur by Shabbos, and they can have an Issur by Shabbos. They don't want to have an Issur by Yontif, so they don't. So because it's more mekel, we're not going to have a geyser there. Whatever, the whole Iker is the rabbanan. But we'll take that we have the whole case in Erevin, that the hahu yenoka, because we are heating up the chatima atula kamei derava. Amar lahu, so go ask the mother if we need to heat it up. So agavima v'hahu ma'aseh b'Shabbos haya. So on Shabbos should be aser. So how can we do Ribui Shiurim there? The alma afilu b'Shabbos ashari l'Ribui Shiura. So there it's mashma there. By Rava is saying that Ribui Shiurim by the baby is mutter. That's on Shabbos. So why we had so you can't make a chiluk of mutter on Yontiv aser on Shabbos because hahu yenoka it was on Shabbos and we're mar b'Shiurim. So there, the teretz there is the law kasha shkafar perish Rashi became b'toises that it was done through a goy. Now again, we said that at the end of toises, the Bahag said that a Jew can do it. So we have like all these shitas are like coming over because there's many points. You gotta get clear what's going on. But here, if you're holding Ribui Shiurim is the rabbanan, then you have to hold that over there. There's a gezerah deraisa, there's gezerah rabbanan deraisa that it's also on Shabbos, not deraisa, whatever. But because Shabbos is skila, therefore they were geyser and it's also on Shabbos. But therefore you can do it through a goy, and you even tell a goy to do it because it's a shavut shavut. That's how you have to. If Tosfos is holding that a Ribui Shiurim is also the rabbanan, so therefore that's why the goy can do it. You can't, because again Tosfos already said you can't tell the goy to do an issur deraisa. But the woman just can't do it to rabbanan. It's an issur rabbanan to heat up for the woman. He went in there with the 7 days and the whole thing. It was an issur rabbanan, so you can tell him to do it, and he can also tell him to do the Ribui Shiurim because it's a derabbanan shus b'moka mitzvah because it's for the mila. So therefore, that said, Tosfos have to learn it over there. Now here the Ram brings the Rashba, Moisef Od. So the fact that he's Moisef, right? The Rashba is holding that this Ribui Shiurim is the rabbanan. So the Ran has put the Rashba and Tosfos together. So again, we have to line up all the teams. Rashba is holding that it's Ribui Shiurim is the rabbanan, and therefore he goes like Tosfos according to the Ran. V'oimer afilu lemandim afarish hatam dalidei Yisrael ka'amar. Right, so even if you say that the Jew did it, so lo kasha wasn't a kasha. The kaven de lo mistar ele midrabanan, because ribui shiurim is only derabanan. Kaven de biyontev shari hasam gave mila misham mitzvah hitiru. So there's the idea of a shavus to shavus, but mokem mitzvah is motor. So it's even if a Jew does it, or there's only one shavus there. That's just a shavus b'mokem mitzvah, according to because there's no amira. Look good, but Ribui Shiurim itself is a derabanan, and the rabbanan b'mokem mitzvah is only one there. Heteru legamri. Right, so mishum mitzvah heteru legamri. So basically, he's saying like there's no gezerah there. Again, it could be that the rabbanan were Lord Geyser b'mokem mitzvah. You can't necessarily learn out there that a shavus. One shavus, according to the Rashba, is mutter b'mokem mitzvah, because it could be that there's no gezerah b'mokem mitzvah, and therefore there's no shavus bechlal. You could learn that way. So afilu alidei Yisrael meklal. So even through a Jew, meklal desfarale, the rubi b'shiyura b'shabes lo mistar elam midrabanan. So that's Tosis and the Rashba holding that Ribui Shiurim is the rabbanan. So now comes Shitas Haran, and I v'tamemi aleihim. What's going on? To Imkain, my come boylan hasn't in menachas, but because he started off with this whole thing. Yeah, so what's the whole question in menachas? If Ribui Shiurim is the rabbanan, then for sure you cut one branch with 3 figs on it, and not 2 branches with 2 figs, because with 2 branches with 2 figs, you're being marbe the isser deraisa of katsira, and there's no isser deraisa of Ribui Shiurim, and therefore you do 1 katsira versus 2 katsira, and who cares if you have 3 figs? There's no isser there. So what the hell's the question there? Because Pashita de Shalosh Maisi to Ribui Shiurim lo mitzar ele midrabanan for Ribui Shiurim mitzar deraisa. The ha'ilu I'm doing look at Garas Echad. Umaisi shlosh boikas echad lo aved deraisa klal. Like so if the guy only wanted 1 and you did 2, if the guy said right he's going to be okay with 1 and you brought him 2, you get makus l'chayav chatus. V'lefikach nirali baror devade Ribui Shiurim b'shabes midiraisa. So this is Shitas Haran. Shitas Haran in Ribui Shiurim is deraisa. Right, we have Ran versus the Rashba. Now, if the Rashba is lining up here with Tosfos, so therefore the Ran will have to be lining up with the Bahag, or maybe it's the other way around. Don't know. B'shabbat deraisa mitasar afilu hachi lo dami Ribui Shiurim b'yom tov le Ribui Shiurim b'Shabbat. So now the Ran has to answer why is a mutter over there. So how's he going to answer? So he's answering up menachos is also deraisa. So why on Yom Tov was it mutter? So the Shabbos Dechiyahu etzel choyle v'lo hutra. So now he's bringing in these ideas of Dechiyah and Hutra. You have to understand what the difference between Hutra and Deicha is. Now, if a malacha is Hutra, if it's Hutra, that means you don't have to have any way how to finagle of how to get away, of how to lessen the malacha. So again, I gave this case before, where a Rav Auerbach was in Shari Chesed, and they use Rav Auerbach's heter for the lights. The doctors can turn on and off the lights in all the rooms there based on the heter of Rav Auerbach. And when Rav Auerbach was there over Shabbos, they asked him, "Are you can turn the light on?" And he's like, "No, I'm not going to turn on the light." He's like, "It's your heter." And he's like, "Yeah, that's for when you need to, when you're in a place where you need to do the light. So therefore, you can use the header. If you don't need to use the light, so therefore don't. So that'll be in place of dechiyah. It's only deicha. So a doctor will need to put the light on, and it's better to use this heter of grama or whatever way he's got the electricity working is better to use that. But if it's deicha, if it's hutra. So therefore, you don't need to use any shenanigans. You can just turn a normal light on and off. So since it's deiche, so therefore you've got these clever ways of how to bypass halachically. There's no isra here. but that's only to be used in certain circumstances. But if it's hutra, so therefore just do whatever you want. There's no difference between using a grama light, and probably be worse to use a grama light because you're losing nanoseconds by using a grama light rather than a. So if something is hutra, then just drive your car. If it's nidche, then you pay the taxi man beforehand, and you get a guy to do it, and all this, and you can drive from A to B in two ways, doing the malacha or doing it in a way that you're not really doing the malacha. And they got a lot of they have a lot of things that are they found halachic ways how to do them, like the old man mobility scooters. They have all these heterim and stuff. So but l'chayra, that's nidche, because if it's hutra, so then you can just use the scooter normally. You can just drive whatever way you want. So that's the difference between hutra and daiche. Again, hutra, you don't have to. You just do the malacha. There's no malacha there to be done. And if it's daiche or nidche, so the malacha is still there, but you have like a heter to do it in a to do it, but you try to minimize the malacha you've done. So levefikach kol sheikr malacha aser af tosefs kamohu. So so here we're saying here, this is by Shabbos. The Shabbos is doichechi et etzel choyle. So if you have Pekuach Nefesh, the Ran is saying that Pekuach Nefesh is only nidche by Shabbos. Since Pekuach Nefesh is nidche by Shabbos, kol ikr malacha is aser. The malacha is taka aser. You're not allowed to do the malacha. Af tosefto kamohu. Therefore, when you do Ribui shiurim, it's also aser, because the whole malacha was only nidche, mitasher midaraisa, because it was nidche. Again, to show the contrast, val yontav she'ochel nefesh hutra, ba'afilu efshar me'erev yontav. Even if you could have done the malach and erev yontav, no, shari kol shehu mar. So it's shari that the whole oichel nefesh is mutter on yontav. There's no need to do anything before. You could have done something beforehand on yontav. No, just do it on yontav. It's completely mutter. There is no malacha on yontav, and therefore when you marbe shiur on yontav, kol shehu marbe al ha'eker is mutter. So that's all. So therefore, since it's hutra on yontav, the whole marbe is mutter as well. Ubuvachi hipatorach echad. So that's what we said. It has to be ma'ase echad to be marbe shiurim. Therefore tosefto kamohu. Therefore the tosefto. Therefore if you cook one challah or 100 challahs, as long as it's torech echad, it's hutra etzel yontav, and therefore it's just the ribui shiurim is mutter. But by Shabbos, the malacha is still aser. Therefore, the marbe of the malacha is aser. But the malacha he actually did for the Pekuach Nefesh is you don't get punished for it because it was nitche by Shabbos. Okay, so that's the Shittas Ran. Shittas Ran is holding for sure that Ribui shiurim is also deraisa. And he explained this whole connection with Hutra and Daiche. So then that's versus the Rashba, who holds that Ribui shiurim is the Rabbanan. Now we have a look at the Rishash. The Rishash was on the we saw the second Rishash here, but this is in the middle of the Toisus so that if a Jew, Toisus says if a Jew is doing it, it would be aser to be Ribui shiurim. Perish mishum sheyesh bor iser deraisa. So now the Rishash is saying in the Toisus that Ribui shiurim is iser deraisa. So the Rishash is a achron, and the Ran is a rishon. It's not really arguing on the Ram, but there are different. There's the maklokus in the Taisus as to whether he is whether he's holding deraisa or the Rabbanan. But anyway, yeah. So he's putting Taisus here on team Ran. Kamoshakasav Haran. He says so. Taisus is Kamoshakasav Haran. I mean, the paraphrase based the B'rais. Veritem, no, the Raya is from that in Chulin. So you have that for when you're making for a sick person. It's Eino Aser Eile de Rabbanan. Lo have a Gazre Shema Yerbod Avle Gezerah Le Gezerah. So what's going on here? That if you cook for a sick person, what's left over is taka mutter for a healthy person. But the Rabbanan came and asered what's good for what's left over for a healthy person. They said that the gezerah that is also because maybe you'll come to be marbe for a healthy person and cook for him as well, and therefore that marbe has to be deraisa. Because if the marbe is only derabanan, so then what's left over is also derabanan. Why? Because maybe you'll do another derabanan of Ribui Shiur and actually cook for him lechatchila. Got to get clear the difference between cooking for a healthy person lechatchila on top of what you're cooking for a sick person. That's an isidura. That's the Ribui Shiurim. But they're geyser. You can't cook what's left over. You can't. A bari person can't eat what's left over. So if the Ribui Shiurim is the rabbanon, then what's left over is a gezerah de rabbanon on a gezerah de rabbanon. So therefore the Ribui has to be deraisa. So therefore, what's left over is a gezerah. Maybe you'll come to be Ribui Shiurim. So he's proving from there that Tosfos is holding that Ribui Shiurim is deraisa. So how could Tosfos say then that it's why is it going through a goy's nicha? Deshari laharbus. So therefore, that since it's a deraisa, so therefore al yedei goy it's nicha to laharbus. Why? Even for something that's not a mitzvah. Kevin de hetzer gomer letzorach choyle al yedei goy de bechoyle gam kain de bechoyle lo gozru. So what's going on here in the Tosfos? If Ribui Shiurim is a deraisa, then how can the goy do the Ribui Shiurim? What do you want to say? You want to say that it's a goy so he can do it? Why all of a sudden? Right. So Tosfos' whole shita is that you can't ask a goy to do an issa deraisa. So now Ribui Shiurim is an issa deraisa. So therefore, how can you ask the goy to do the Ribui Shiurim? Right. I mean, I'll put in here that the Ran says that it's bechuach nefesh is nidche by on Shabbos. It's a maklokas rishonim. The Chasam Sofer brings that up, that it's a maklokas rishonim. So he can't hold by that teretz of the Ran, and he brings something else. But it's a maklokas rishonim as to whether bechuach nefesh is nidche or hutra on Shabbos. But we're gonna leave that out. That's true. We're just gonna leave that out and just pretend that Tosfos holds that it's nidche and he's like the Ran to keep it here. So if he's holding that it's that it could be a teretz, but we're not going to use the Rashash doesn't use that teretz, so we're not going to use that teretz. But so the way I'm explaining the problem here is that since Ribui Shiurim is an issa deraisa, how can you ask the goy to be Ribui Shiurim like Tosfos does? So want to learn the Rashash like this, right? Kevin de heter gomer letzorach choyle alidei goy de b'choyle lo gozru. That where is bechuach nefesh nidche on Shabbos when a Jew is doing a malacha? But since the kol etzem of a goy doing a malacha is mutter, there's no. Obviously, the goy is not nidche by Shabbos. Once the goy is doing the malacha, it's a state of hutra by the goy. The goy is never going to get skila if he does. Because the case that the Ran brought is if you by the katsira, how can you cut two? If you cut two when you only need one, you get chayav chata. So it's not shaykh for the goy. Therefore, whenever a goy is doing a malacha on Shabbos, it's always hutra by the goy, and therefore the goy is able to do Ribui Shiurim because all malach is hutra by the goy. And if I don't know if you can really read it here, but therefore letzorach choyle alidei goy de b'choyle lo gozru the whole, because the whole amira la'akum is a gezerah. So therefore the amira la'akum was not part of the gezerah by goy doing malach on Shabbos, because there's the. So if a Jew is doing it for a choyle, for the mother, so then he's not allowed to do the Ribui Shiurim because Ribui Shiurim is an issa deraisa. And by him, the bechuach nefesh is nidche. But it's not really deraisa, but Tosfos, but whatever for the whole thing. But once the goy is doing it for the mother, So now that that malacha that the goy is doing for the mother is hutra, and therefore, since it's hutra by the goy for the mother, he can do the ribui shiurim. There is no deraisa there because it's hutra, and therefore the goy can continue, and then we have no issue of amir la'akim to tell the goy to do the ribui shiurim. But we need to have the first bit by the mother because the Chazal sorry for that asked the question. What's Rava doing? Saying he says, "Oh, can we heat it up for the baby? Only if the mother needs it. If the mother doesn't need, then we can't heat it up. What the hell? Just do it for the mother. Because once you have Ribui Shiurim deraisa, if you do it for the mother, it's deraisa. If you do it for the baby, it's deraisa. They're both deraisa. So therefore, the Ribui Shiurim is deraisa, doing it for the mother's deraisa. So therefore, what difference does it make? So here would be marviach. We're answering that terrorist. Would be marviach zeh with this rashash. So kamosh kasev aran sham betaima to be yontav mutter laharbus will letzorach oichel nefesh hutter gomer. So like there we have a hutter gomer. So the goy has a heter gomer. I mean to say that. So therefore, again, it's not a general heter. Just for Ribui Shiurim by a goy, it's hutra. Now, the Rashash here says that it just goes on and explains what Tosfos does later and says, well, maybe he rejects it. And then he says that so even with all this, don't ask from what we say that Yontov is mutter, the harbus. That's how he explains, that's just the end of the Tosfos there. But even though that in Menachos, in B'divrei time, so we saw this last time. So over there we saw in Menachos that Tosfos is saying that it's an Isser de Rabbanan. So that Isser de Rabbanan, Tosfos says in Menachos that by Eruvin, the Ribui Shiurim is an Isser de Rabbanan, and the Rashash here is saying that it's an Isser deraisa. So how can he there says I? So Tosfos is arguing of whether we're in Eruvin, because again at the end of the Menachos. Yes, this is Tosfos in Menachos. So here he brings Eruvin. If you because the Ribui Shiurim there is only an Isser de Rabbanan. So says the Rashash, I'm saying here that he says Isser deraisa, and you say over there it says Isser Rabbanan. Zemetzinu rabot. There's lots of ties in the Devarim shestoishim etatzma mimokum lemokum. So therefore, the Tosfos from one mesachah to another, or one seder to another. He's Tosfos himself. Don't worry about it. But for sure, this is the pshat of Tosfos here in Eruvin, and that's the Rashash. Now again, by the Rashba. Why can you ask the goy to do the Ribui Shiurim? It's still an Isser de Rabbanan because we weren't goyzer fighter. You can make up the Rabbanans whatever way you want. So now we're gonna start. Now we have everyone on their teams. We're gonna have to start to divide the Meikeh Chilukim Kuvot Shiurim from Bitzah. Because again, Bitzah is where we say that it's mutter. Ribui Shiurim is mutter. So she does Tosfos for Rashba. So again, we have Tosfos and Rashba. So here he's saying that Tosfos holds that it's a Ribui Shiurim d'Rabbanan. Ribui Shiurim eno elo b'Rabbanan. So that the Kuvot Shiurim again is Rav Chanan is arguing on the Rashash as to where the Tosfos is. So again, it's going like the Ran. But Tzarach Tam, okay, Tzarach Tam. So we're going to ask, am I yeh moter midaraisa? I'm doing this malacha. Right, I'm only allowed to do this much. So on Yontiv, whatever. So we're saying that it's a malacha deraisa. It has to be marbe the shiur. It's a malacha deraisa. So I'm allowed to cook what I want on Yontiv. Okay, so but I'm just being marbe shiur. Kvar kasav Rambam benazir she shaita yain kol yameina chayiv el achas. It's only b'nei adam but b'nei shemaim is chayiv kol achas v'achas. So I'm still doing. Even if you're only getting the makos, you're still getting that isser of doing it every time. If you and then you carry or you pluck or you cook two in the same act, why are you not chayiv in dinei shemayim on the second one? So, I mean, you don't have to like his teretz. I mean, he says Shemati Tam. You like the teretz, but this is teretz. And again, he's answering up for the Rashba. He's saying this is what the Rashba holds. If I cook 2 figs, or I carry 2 figs, I only need one of them. Both each one of them is choser for the chol. Which one of them is also? So I'm carrying 2 figs, and the sick person only needs one, and you're like, oh, you're chayiv for the other one. And he says, well, which one am I chayiv for? Pick the one I'm chayiv for. Well, I don't know. What's the din? Isser, vaday asr midaraisa. And also someone who takes out a yontav oichlin va'avonim. Now, this is going to be the big question. Okay? And I'm going to repeat this. This is going to be the big question. Food and stones. Right? Food you're allowed to carry on yontav. Stones you're not allowed to carry on yontav. Right? So if you carry on yontav food and stones b'hoitze achas, you get makas on the stones. Midaraisa. V'chein lehepech. Right? Again, I don't know exactly what the so he's saying if you carry food and stones on yontav, you get makus for carrying the stones. Now we will say that if you can carry on yontav. But you can only carry things that are mutter for the chag. Since the food is mutter, you can carry that, but the stones you can't carry. Therefore, you get makus deraisa. So then weiter, if there were two figs on 2 branches, and each one of them was chazi l'chayla, and you did both of them, b'bas achat, mutter or aser? Mutter, because they're both fitting, they're both for a chayla. I can't point to the one that's aser, sharim midaraisa, de'ezim mehen te'asor. So therefore you can have a ribui shiurim is the rabbanon. Ve'im kein, ma shohok sheharan, b'perach beis b'beitza, al shitazu, v'suges de benachus, lo kasha. Ayin Sham. Okay, so therefore, the Ran. So we saw that kasha. Why is it for sure we have the question? Right. So he said that for sure one's better. If we have one that has 3, and one that has 1, and one that has 1, then for sure one that has. Yeah, sorry, one that has 1, one that has 1, and one that has 3. Then for sure the one that has 3 is better. So he says that they cut them at babas achas. Since you only do one maisa, so therefore we're good. So now aval dasaran. Now we're going to forget again, because again we're splitting them into teams. We have the Rashba on one side, and whoever wants to join him. That's the pshat of the Rashba, and now he's going to give a completely different pshat as to why it's mutter according to the Ran. Okay, and don't get confused of hutra v'nincha. Why, if it's hutra, is it mutter? Why, if it's nincha, is it asr? Aval dasa Ran, the second half is going to have a different reason. Again, therefore, whoever's team we're going to have on, they're going to be dealing with different reasons. Shan lechelek bein duchi lehutra. The bekuch nefesh b'Shabbos asr midaraisa, boicha nefesh b'yontav shari. V'nira tam chiluk zeh. So again, what's the reason behind the hutra and the ditcha? The malachas Shabbos is the gufa malacha u'maisa malachas kagod mavashal. So what the Kibbutz is going to say is that in order to be chayiv on Shabbos, you need to have a maisa malacha and a toitza of a malacha, which you're going to see here in mavashal. Gufa malacha hi masha meshafel b'Shabbos. So the gufa of the malacha is the toitza of the malacha, that something got cooked. Umaisa malacha. Right? And what's a maisa malacha? He amda hakadera al ha'esh. So putting the pot on the fire, that's the maisa malacha. So you need 2 things, the maisa malacha, and you need the toitza of the malacha. So if you put a pot on the fire and it doesn't get cooked, are you chayiv or potter? So you're potter. So and if you cook it on Shabbos, you don't have any maisa malacha on Shabbos, you're also potter, which you'll explain. So if you put the ketera on Shabbos and the gomer bishul on chol, you're potter. V'kein lehepech. And if you put the kedera on erev Shabbos, right? This is what is, you put the cholent pot, it's not cooked. It's okay on Shabbos. Why? A bushel yeh b'Shabbos potter. Why? Because you need both the maisa malacha and the toitza malacha on Shabbos, both of them together to be Yeah, Toitza, the result's a good explanation, yeah. Because if you see he speaks modern Hebrew, so he's able to translate it into nice modern English. So so when you pick one that has two, Isa hamaisa echad shtei malachas. So one maisa has two malachas. Right? Because both of the dates has a maisa and a toitza, or a guf malacha, because they were both aval maisa talisha hiachas. So the guf was two, but the maisa was one. Now that maisa was mutter, because it was sarach the chayla. So I was allowed to pick one. So therefore, my talisha, I was allowed to do that tolush. And even though two came with it, the second one doesn't have a maisa malacha on it, even though it has the toitza of the malacha on it. Sarach l'tolush b'shvil gogeres echas etzrichi l'chayla or l'ochel nefesh b'yontav. Okay, we say yesh l'chalek bein hutra l'dechia. So therefore now, when we're doing the maisa, we're going to see, is there a maisa here or not? The b'hutra nechsheves a maisa ke'ilu nasa b'chol. If it's hutra, so therefore, by cooking on Yontav, any maisa I do, it's like the maisa was done b'chol. So therefore, I don't have a maisa b'chlal of the malacha. So it's like I did it on Erev Shabbos. So if I'm cooking on Yontav, it's hutra. So therefore, that maisa of cooking, that maisa, so I have 10 things in my pot, I only want 5 now. Not doing it, but when I'm cooking those 5, since oichel nefesh is hutra, that maisa of the 5 is like it was done on Erev Shabbos. Therefore, the other 5 that I'm cooking, I should have said I want 3 on Yontiv and 7 on 7 is all Ribui Shiurim. The Maisa for 3 was like done on Erev Shabbos. It was done on Erev Chag. And therefore the 7, even though it has the Toitzah, the result of cooking, there's no Maisa Malacha there because the Maisa Malacha was done on Erev Shabbos and Erev Chol because it was Hutra. It was like, even though I did it on Yontiv, since it was Hutra, it was like I did it on Erev Shabbos. And therefore there is no Maisa Malacha there, and therefore it is Mutter Lagamri. Af Shekuf Malacha Nasa B'Yontiv, even though I'm cooking the chicken on Yontiv. Aval b'duchia lo nechshavana keilu naisa maisa b'chol. But if it's nidcha, it's not like I did it on Erev Shabbos. Therefore, if I'm cooking, if I'm cutting the figs on Shabbos, so therefore, that maisa is nidcha by b'chuk nefesh, and therefore I have a maisa. Therefore, that second fig will be aser because it has a toitzah, and the malacha, since it's nidcha, also has a maisa on Shabbos. The fizeh im tolish beyontav oikests sheish pushtei gargaras ha'aches roya le'achila v'aches eina roya ela le'kalavim. So therefore, that the second one is not roya le'achila. Therefore, mikom shari deraisa came into maisa talisha hutra. That's on Yontav. The Farish Rishon Mikadva Aser Midaraisa. So he's bringing out a chiluk. But if I am going to, on Shabbos, cut one oiketz for a chayla that has 2 gregeret, and he only needs 1 gregeret, so therefore the second one has a toitza and it has a maisa because it was only nidcha, and therefore it will be aser on Shabbos to do that. The Chasim Sofer brings an idea of chetzi shir, that it's not. So that's how the Ran. That's how he answers that the goy can do it because only like a chetzi shir is not a proper shir, even though it's just a deraisa. But here, basically, you have that. According to the first one, we said that only if they're both mutter. So here, where you cut one talosh, you cut one oiketz, one is mutter, one you can eat, one you can't eat. Then you can point to the one that's aser, and therefore that'll be aser according to the first lashon. But according to the second lashon, that it's okay because he cut it on yontiv, talosh b'yontiv, and that's hutra. However, if you cut them on Shabbos, it would be aser, and therefore you come out here with the same question of avanim and oichlin. So if you v'kein hamoitze b'yontiv oichlin v'avanim b'hoitze achas. That now here, according to the first shita, then you're loika. According to the second shita, you carried the avanim. The avanim had the toitzah of being carried on yontiv, which was aser because you're not allowed to carry them. It's not roy le'achila. However, you don't have the Maisa Toitza because the Maisa Toitza was done, and therefore the Maisa Toitza was done on Chol. You carried those stones on Erev Shabbos, not on Yontiv itself, and therefore it would be mutter. So therefore, by Oichlim va'avanim, it would be a machlokus between the first shita and the second shita as to whether Oichlim va'avanim would be mutter on Yontiv. But we still have the issue on Shabbos. Obviously, on Shabbos you can't carry it, but on Shabbos to be nitche or wherever it's nitche. But once you have a hutra, therefore you have a machlokus between that. Therefore, the carrying would be hutra on Yontiv for oichel nefesh, and therefore you have a machlokus between the Rashba and the Ran. Again, Team Rashba says you get makos, and Team Ran will say mutter. So it comes out in the Rashba. The Rashba says that it's a Issa de Rabbanan, and I would think that Issa de Rabbanan will be mekel. And then with this mekel toitza, this mekel idea of Ribui Shiurim is the Rabbanan, it comes out that you get makos if you bring Eichel and Ovanim you get makos and Yontiv. And then the Ran, who's Machmir, and says, seemingly Machmir, saying that it's an Issa Deraisa, comes out and is saying that Eichel Ovanim would be mutter on Yontiv, even though that he holds that it's Deraisa. So, but again, this is all the Shiurim, but now the Minchas Chינוך here, this is talking about Tumas Kohanim, Reish Sadik Dalet. So nearly Od Chiluk Ben Hutra LeDechia. So he's getting into the whole din there, and he's bringing the Ran. Behini Kan Benanechsi Im Munach Bebeis Kurov. So after going through the Ran's ID, he brings the Ran in this little sheet as a Ran, Dechia and Hutra. If he's in a house, but bias korov. So a Kohen is in a house that has a korov in it. But bias mace rochok. Right. So the Kohen is mutter to a korov and it's also to a rochok. So he's in one house. He's already there, and then he's in the same house as a rochok. Emes kol zeh sheyem mitame lakorov. Ein esulem tare af rochok. So he says here, this is Shitas of the Chinuch, that he's allowed to be metame to the rochuk because he's mecholal, as we said above. So this is the mecholal, he's already tame. However, to enter in betchila, are you allowed to enter into this house? So the rochuk zar is an isser, right? The korov is mutter. He's allowed to go into the house with the korov. But so if he's already there, so he's already mecholal. No, he doesn't have to exit because of the rochuk. So ma'od have k'mei shalosh ba'oketz echad dechetzi motor u'motor hu tosafet ve'im amrim de tuma keruvim hutra. So now, see, he's saying that this is the din of Ribui Shiurim. Okay, so a kohen is motor to the korov and he's also to the rochuk. So is he allowed to enter in there? Lechetchila, the Minchas Chinoch says that this is a din of Ribui Shiurim, and therefore it's to do as to whether Tuma is Tumas Korov is Hutra or Nidche. Okay, so what is Ribui Shiurim? Ribui Shiurim is that you have something that you're mutter to do, like the woman is allowed to cook one piece of meat, and then her Ribui Shiurim is that she's filled up her pot with things she's not allowed to do. So Ribui Shiurim is where you are doing more than you're allowed to do. So, and again, it's babas achas. So the kohen allowed? He is allowed to enter into this ohel that has his korov, and he's not allowed to enter into this ohel that has his rachuk. So therefore, the Ribui Shiurim is there. Since he's already doing something. What's the shiur? The shiur of tuma. He's allowed to do this tuma. He's allowed to be metame. And now he's going to do things he's not allowed to be metame to. She's cooking pieces of meat she is allowed to cook. And she's cooking pieces of meat she's not allowed to cook. It's Ribui Shiurim. I'm cutting figs I'm allowed to cut. And I'm cutting figs I'm not allowed to cut. These are all Ribui Shiurim. So therefore, now what the Minchas Chinoch is going to say, this is all Tali as to whether the tumas of keruvim, the tumas so if the tumas keruvim or hutra, imkain havele kami ribui b'yomtiv, kevin shehu b'bas achas, because he's entering into, he's not metaming twice, right? But he's entering into one ohel mace that has a rochok and a tame. Even though that the mutter who malacha after mutter hu malacha ubalav and it's a lav kaven de lav tzarich le ukamu kamu babas achas. So since it's babas achas, so therefore if the keruvim is hutra, so therefore he's allowed going in and do babas achas. So weiter aval amrim in techiyahu kain ave kamei kamo b'chok nefesh b'shabbos b'shlosh achas. So therefore so this one kind of fits everything we're saying, that if it's techiyah, so therefore it is not okay. So if it's hutra, so therefore there's no maisa here, and therefore he can go in and do it. And if it's techiyah, therefore he can't be mar b'shim. This is all going like the Ran. So then at the end he says, "Aval likanes lechatchila b'bayis sheyisham korav urachuk near beinai." If it's hutra tuma keruvim mutter im techiyah aser v'dami mikol tzad l'divrei haran shemachalak ben yontov l'shabbos. So here is the minchas chinuch that's saying that you can be marbe. So anyone who holds that it is hutra, therefore you can be marbe shiur, and therefore the Ran. This is mamish lining up like what we said. Again, let's get clear here because some people can't deal with metaphors. Oichel v'avanim is our case. Yeah, we're talking about oichel v'avanim is our case. Yes. So the oichel is the korov and the avanim is the rachuk. So we said, according to the Rashba, it's Aser. According to the Ran, it's Mutter. So here we have the Minchas Chinuch Mamish saying that according to the Ran, it's Oichav Avanim and it's Mutter for Ribui Shiurim. So continuing on in the Achi'azar, which is Chaim. So he gets a letter talking about the Minchas Chinuch. And again, we saw in the Minchas Chinuch, according to Rashi, that the Tumas Kruvim is Hutra, Lagabe Kohen. So therefore, if he was there in a mace korov in the same oihel as a rochuk, so therefore the kohen is allowed to go in because yesh din marba b'shiurim. Vayir alzeh, the guy who's writing to the Achi'azar, the lo dami is not similar. The hasan b'marba shiurim b'shabbos or yontiv kol chad mutter v'raka ribui aser. So each one is mutter. So we have one chicken for yontiv, and then all the chickens you put in the pot that are cooking, it's all mutter. Or you put one challah in the oven, that's what you're going to eat, and everything else is the ribui. But all those other challahs you could taka eat right now. And since you could eat all those challahs right now, so therefore we have the ribui shiurim of heter. Again, this is like what we saw in the Rashba, that the Rashba was saying that each one, why is it mutter deraisa for ribui shiurim? Because you can't point at anyone. In order to be aser, you got to point to the aser. Say, this is what you did. That was aser. So I take 10 pieces of bread out of the oven. I only need one of them. So which one is the aser? I don't know. So therefore it's not. So all this is going like the Rashba, seemingly. So masha ein kein bezed l'rochok aser v'l'harkorov mutter. Ein shaykh bezed din marba b'shiurim. And then this is the Achi'azar, Devarev Nechonim, that these are correct words of what was being said. So here he's making a simple chiluk in the Achi'azar of that marba shiurim only works where everything that your marba is mutter. You can't be marba isurim to your marba shiurim, and therefore when you enter into a oihel mace and you have something that's also there, a kohen is also to a rochok, and therefore you can't be marba isurim to that. However, this is all seemingly going like the Kuvas Shiurim according to the Rashba, and not like the Ran. So therefore, we could have a nice machlokus there, where the Achi'azar is going like the Rashba, and the Minchas Chinuch is going like the Ran. So therefore, according to the Ran, you'll be able to do Ribui Shiurim of Davar Iser, because we said there that you need both things to be techal on Shabbos. That you have the Maisa and you have the toitza. You have the acting, you have the toitza. So since you walk in one, you've only got one maisa, and even though you have the toitza. So the Achi'azar then brings a different his own question coming from Rashi. Even going to Rashi doesn't make sense. But aval b'kol oifin ein ze ini lemar b'shiurim. So he says the whole thing is not called marba b'shiurim, and therefore when you are again marba b'shiurim, according to the Achi'azar is where you're being marba heter leheter. So therefore, when you are marba nisr, you can't do that. Now, Igros Moshe asking a question. What about bringing cigarettes on Yontiv? And he needs only 10 cigarettes. So for the day of Yontiv, he needs 10 cigarettes. I use a mutter to carry them to a Carmelis and Rosh Hashanah, a packet of cigarettes that has 20. So you have here extra cigarettes that you do not need for the Yontiv, because you only need 10 for Yontiv, and therefore you're carrying an extra 10. Or Shemachayev Lahasar, you have to remove from the packet the extra ones more than you need. So if you need 10, so then you need to take out 10 if there's 20 in the packet. Now, seemingly, you're not like Mechuyev to smoke 10. If Barogil, you're going to smoke 10, and it's like, oh no, I'll be Chayev Achatzis if I don't smoke 3 more cigarettes in 3 minutes. You're probably okay, even according to the second side, because you smoke 10 cigarettes, and if it's all tzorach yom, and if you only had 7, you'd be worried on Yontav, I don't gonna have enough nicotine today. Now, Nias Daiti Nira, this is the psak of Moshe Feinstein. Shedomi zeh lememali shekol kedera basar, that she's filling up all of her pot with basar. Now, seemingly basar here, it's all basar. So therefore, all the things in the pot are dover heter, even though you only need one piece. So you put 10 pieces in, even though you only need one, and therefore you have 10 cigarettes, and you have 20 cigarettes. You only need 10, and to fill up the baker can fill up the chavis of water, even though he only needs 1 jug. That's all in Beitza Yod Zayin, which we saw. That it's a mutter even if shelo nishpach mizeh klum liyontiv, that it doesn't help for Yontiv. I only want 1 piece of meat for Yontiv. The rest is even for Moitzi Yontiv, for Chol. That's all good. Ribui mitam de bechad tirchahu. So we saw this before. It has to be chad tircha. K'meresh Rashi. The aspect came by Shulchan Aruch. This is the halach in Shulchan Aruch. Tuf Kuf Gimel. Mishum de Ribui Shiurim bechad tircha af Shabbos also made deraisa mikumokum mutter b'Yontiv. So for now, we're saying that Ribui Shiurim is a deraisa, even though it's mutter b'yomtov. Now that goes like the Ran, as we saw that he's holding by Ribui Shiurim is deraisa and not the Rabbanan. So then, so therefore here to bring out 10 when they're in the box of 1 box, they're there. That's a tircha achas, like they were. The 10 that he needs is there's no also. So you're bringing 10 you don't need, and you're bringing 10 you do need. And therefore, the extra 10 is Ribui Shiurim and Mutter. So you can bring the whole 20 according to Moshe Feinstein. Here, when he brings Kadiisa Baran, that's not in the Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch just says here that it's also Deraisa Mekumokum Mutter B'Yontiv, and then Moshe Feinstein asks Kadiisa Baran, answering what does it mean also Deraisa, that the Ribui Shiurim is also Deraisa. Here in this next paragraph, he just says that if that's if the packet has 20 and you're walking out the door. If there's 10 in the packet and you're walking out the door, seemingly it would be also to put in 10 and then carry the 20 around, because that wasn't there at the beginning. Shemir Shabbos Kehilchasa, which the Iker is Rav Zalman Auerbach. This is in chapter 19, number 6. This is the section on Yontiv. So we have Gefrurim v'Sigarium. So bringing here Mutter lahoitzi meshus l'reshus, a pack of gifrurim, or a pack of cigarettes. See above. Agam she'enu, even though you're on Yontiv only part of the cigarettes. Right, so even though you only need some of them, so you can bring out the whole box, even though you only need a chelik. Okay, so that's seemingly like exactly what Moshe said, yeah? So we have a look at note 14. This is the new edition. I believe it's the same as the old edition, but I don't know. If you can get a copy of the old edition, have a look. So, Shalos Tshuva, Sigris Moshe, this is what we saw, Kov Gimel. If you take out the Moitzi, mi Petach Melushus Rabim. So it's mutter to bring out. Also, if it's Nimsa in Sorecha, so it's all tied up together with keys, with other keys. So if you have a set of keys that you don't have tzorach and v'yontiv, so therefore it would be Ribui Shiurim and it would be mutter. So therefore, if you have your, as long as your car key isn't muksa, some of them have buttons and stuff on it. You have your office key, you have your bicycle lock key. They're all on the same set of keys. So you have your house key on a key ring, and you have your office key and all these other things on the key ring as well. Just take it out. Ribui Shiurim, just like Moshe Feinstein says, by cigarettes, you don't need to take the cigarettes you don't need out. So too here, you don't need to take the keys out. This is like the second paragraph there of the Moshe Feinstein. This is only where you found the key already, but also to add the key to the set of keys and bring them out for Eno Tzorach. So this is a bit of a ridiculous situation where you don't have your office key on your key ring and you don't need your office key, and then you add your office key on Yontiv just to carry it around. That's also, I mean, it kind of like is probably also without thinking about it, but that's also because you're adding on the tircha. So basically, what we're doing here in the Shemir Shabbos is that we're taking this, just like we have so we have the Ribui Shiurim by the cigarettes, and so too we have the Ribui Shiurim by the keys. Like, what's the difference? Seemingly that's all good. So Moshe Feinstein then later in this is a chelik hey, the other one was chelik beit. So 3 chalakim later. So you have a ring with keys on Yontiv when you only need some of them. So davar echad sheishli tavas malay maftech harba. So you have a key ring with lots of keys on it, and Yontiv you only need. So tzarich lo b'shah sheyoytze means basically your trip on Yontiv. What keys do you need for that specific trip? So tzarich l'shah is what you need now. So your office key you're going to use after Yontiv is not included here. So sheyotze mi beitu lebeis hakeneses v'lechol zman mezana lo leilek. So wherever you're gonna go, ela miftach echad u'shnayim u'metatzel, and you were lazy to remove the rest of the keys from the key ring. Is it mutter to go with all the keys on the ring, or you have to remove them because there's no need for them, and the rest of them is only that you need them davka on this specific walk? I say that you need to remove the mafteach that are extra because you don't need them in the chlicha of this time. So now here, so Moshe Feinstein is completely saying the opposite to what we saw in the Shemir Shabbos Kehilchasai, that you are not allowed to carry the keys that you don't need for the day. And then we asked the question based on the previous one. Look at the cigarettes, and I only need 10 for the trip, and I can carry 20. There's 20 that you don't need to remove them, and it's mutter to go to the Carmelist. So therefore, my nafkamina hinei chilaku pashut. It's a pashut chiluk that the cigars, every one of them is roy lo behazman shelo yeh bebeitoi. Because each one of them is fitting. So when I leave my house, every one of those cigarettes is of use for me on that trip. V'shayach lo kuluhu be'etzem. Each one itself be'etzem is shayach for my yontiv carrying. Then if it's simple, another way would also be like tissues or something as opposed to cigarettes if you don't smoke. Because tissues, every tissue in the box are the same. I mean, maybe you can tie the tissue at the top that's popping out. You get like a pop-out tissue, so I only need the ones at the top, the ones at the bottom. But technically, I can use the tissue at the bottom. I don't even if I don't need the all 200 tissues, I can carry them all out, even if I just need one. Because each one of them, the essence is roy to use if I need to blow my nose. So seemingly here he's going like the Achi'ezer, who's saying that only mutter and mutter is mutter, and therefore each one itself has to be roy, and therefore that's going like the Rashba of again we was holding that Ribui Shiurim is the Rabbanan. So therefore he'll be carrying something that he doesn't need if he carries his office keys. And this whole need done is only because he doesn't need all of them. Because that's the Ribui B'Shiurim in one tircha. That's Mutter B'Yontiv, even though Shabbos is a Deraisa, mitam to Isa Baran. So now here, Moshe Rabbeinu is again bringing the Ran because the time of the Ran is going to Deraisa. But we're saying here really that Moshe Feinstein is going like the Rashba. Now, this isn't really a tiyufta on Moshe Feinstein because that chiluk we saw in the Kuvit Shiurim, again we saw this is only on the Kuvit Shiurim where we have the big question of Ochlin v'Avanim, and this is really our question here that our cigarettes are oichel v'oichel. Some oichel I need, some oichel I don't need, and then if I have keys that I can use on Shabbos and keys that I can't use on Shabbos. So that's oichav avonim. I'm not going to use my office key on Shabbos, or sorry, on Yom Tov. It's also anyway on Shabbos. So therefore, that we said according to the Rashba, oichav avonim is also, and according to the Ran, oichav avonim is mutter. So therefore, seemingly the Shmir Shabbos and the Minchas Chinuch are all going like the Ran, and the Achi'ezr and the Moshe Feinstein are going like the Rashba. But the Moshe Feinstein is backing himself in and saying, "Taka, look at the Shulchan Aruch saying that it's a deraisa. That Ribui Shiurim is a deraisa that goes like the Ran. So therefore, he would need to disagree with this breakdown of the Kuvas Shiurim. However, that's not. You can't just disagree with the Kuvas Shiurim because the Kuvas Shiurim is given a time, is given a reason as to why these laws are coming out the way they do. Why is it that Isser Ribui Shiurim D'Rabbanan is Osir? Why is that? And then he gave his svar, and then why would it be D'Raisa Isser? And he gave the svar. So therefore, you would need to plug in new svaras here to make it work like the Moshe Feinstein. But he didn't seem to seem he doesn't give svaras to answer it the way like the Kuvas Shiurim does. So until we get a better teretz, so therefore it's. But it just seems to be a simple machlokus here between this is a machlokus Tanayim. Sorry, Rishonim between the Ran and the Rashba. So after Bishul Mustavar, it's only the Varan that are fitting to cook for a man. It's mutter to fill all the kedera. Right? And again, this is talking the same shaila oichlin avonim. When I am cooking in a pot, malay bosser, I can only fill it with oichel v'oichel. But to put in there the kedera is something that is not fitting only for a behema, only a behema is going to eat it. Even after it's cooked, and then it'd be ulcer. So here again, what you're saying, oichel va'avonim is ulcer. Again, that was like the Rashba. You can't cook for a behema, so therefore cooking for a behema for Ribui Shiurim is ulcer. It's not mutter here because there's no time that there's no reason that it would be better that the heter that you can be bishul oichel nevesh la'adam and then you can just add an isser to it for bishul behema. So therefore again he'll be agreeing with the Achi'ezr when he's saying, what are you talking about? You can just be marba isurim just because you have a heter to go to matame to a korov doesn't mean you can just start been adding these isurim to a rochuk. That's not called marba shiurim, and that's really the shita of the Achi'ezr. So they have a roy lisha harav goyin Rav Yeshua Norbit. Do you know who this is? He's the machaver of Shemir Shabbos Kehilchasa. So again, he learned with Rav Zalman Auerbach and wrote down all his Shabbos halachas in Shemir Shabbos Kehilchasa. Perach Yud Tes Sif Vav that he brought there that I wrote that was mutter lahoitzi b'yomtov to feast this box of cigarettes, even though he doesn't eat only a bit of them. Okay, that was all good. But he's hoisef in his note. Wait, Yud Zayin in our note that it was Yud Dalid. So you got to have a look, early edition, to see because the numbers don't match up here. But we had because I'm in the new edition, so maybe there's a different note there. But obviously it's in the new edition. He's still saying the same thing about keys. If he said gamba maftech mutter lo lohoitzi biyomtov kol tzara maftech avshe ein sarach elo leachmehem. So he's bringing here the sheet in the Shemir Shabbos Kehilchasa mamish keneged what he wrote above. He said it's also you have to take him off. And said lo dakbazeh. So according to Meir, it appears to me he wasn't medayik in what I wrote. Shebepachus mistaver la'asur that the keys suffered an isur, as we said above. But so l'chayra, I don't know if he wasn't medak in there, but Moshe Feinstein himself brought the Ran, and l'chayra the Shemir Shabbos Kehilchasa is going like the Ran. So why wouldn't it be the same? Why wouldn't it be there? I think there were some mishmos in the first Moshe Feinstein of that it's only heter v'heter. You're allowed to be more b'shiurim and not iser heter v'iser. But again, we go back to this question of oichlin v'avanim, and now we have the Rashba Toisvus according to the Kuvets Shiurim, and we have the Minchas Chinuch. Sorry, no, we have Moshe Feinstein and we have the Achi'ezer, all on the Rashba's team, saying that Oichel Va'avanim V'Hoitza Achad is Aser on Yontiv, and then we'll have the Ran and the Minchas Chinuch and the Shmir Shabbos Gehilchasa, Rav Auerbach, or like the Ran, saying that Oichel Va'avanim is Motor Ba'arva Shiurim on Yontiv, and is Motor for a Kohen to be Marbe his, as long as B'Bas Achas, B'Tumas Achas, that he's able to go into a Oichel, a mace. Yeah, so here in the Shmir Shabbos, he's saying just like Oichel va'Oichel is Motor for Marbe Shiurim, also Oichel va'Avanim is Motor for Marbe Shiurim. And Moshe Feinstein says, no, that's ridiculous. Only Oichel va'Oichel is Marbe Shiurim is Motor. And Shmir Shabbos Kokel says, why? What's the difference? Oichel va'Avanim is also Motor for Marbe Shiurim lechatchila. So again, this is all on Yontiv. Obviously, in Shabbos, everything's Asr anyway, and the Shulchan Aruch Pasuk said it's Marbe Shiurim is Asr Deraisa on Shabbos, but Chor Yontiv, and then again, like the Kohen will be nothing to do with Shabbos or Yontiv, but that case of the Kohen, so therefore, we're left with just Hutra and Dechia, which are the words of the Ran, and therefore, L'chaira the Minchas Chinuch works that if we paskin like the Ran, and therefore any halacha that's Hutra, so therefore we should be able to be Marbe Shur, and the Achi'ezr says no, because you're Marbe and Oichel Avanim. What's the problem with Oichel and Avanim? Seemingly, according to the Kuvitz in the Ran.